When it came time to decide what game would be the focal point for this assignment, I was honestly left with a few weeks of panicked indecision. Could I reasonably describe the unsettling beauty of a game like Control and how the brutalist architecture was as much of a character as protagonist Jesse Faden? Would I find more success discussing the loneliness and struggle against the clock that a player is made to feel in a game like The Outer Wilds? I had even considered choosing from a list of games I'd never played if only because they were on my backlog, and I wanted a reason to tackle that never-ending list. With the doubt in my different choices continuing to mount, I found myself going to my regular game group for ideas. I wanted to know what sort of games they might want to hear me talk about. It was that discussion that led me to my decision. While working on a project for a class that was teaching me to think about games in new and exciting ways, why not take a look at a game that exemplified what the medium has always been to me? A way to have fun and create memories with my friends. This is what led me to a little game called Deep Rock Galactic.
Don't waste your ammunition! Make every bullet count! Here we go! Eat that! It's gonna blow!
Deep Rock Galactic, known as DRG to its community, is an interesting beast. Existing as a strange combination of games like Left 4 Dead and Minecraft with a healthy dose of Starship Troopers thrown in, DRG is a cooperative, class-based, first-person shooter focused around mission-based gameplay that sees the player and up to 3 other friends take on the role of different space dwarves, each with their own specific class, weapons, and abilities. Each mission will see the dwarves descend from their orbital station into the depths of the hostile planet Hoxus 4, with a goal usually related to mining for resources while not getting eaten by the native species of the planet, the Glyphid. DRG, created by independent Danish studio Ghost Ship Games and published by Coffee Stain Publishing, has garnered a bit of a cult following after spending around 2 years in Steam Early Access before officially releasing on PC and Xbox in May of 2020. As of writing this, the game has a 97% positive rating from over 66,000 reviews on Steam, which is no small feat for games that spent years in Early Access. For further context, DRG is the 51st highest rated game on the entirety of the Steam platform, which as of February 2021 has over 50,000 games in its library, putting it in the top 0.1% of all games on Steam for community reviews. Now, it's all well and good to understand that a game is popular. Plenty of games develop healthy communities behind them. And sure, it helps to understand the sort of genre tags we can apply to a game when we talk about it, but I want to circle back to the why. Why did this game make the cut when I was staring down a list of dozens? I was ultimately inspired to talk about DRG because at its simplest, it's a game about going on some adventures with your friends. It throws you into a world with very little explanation, but you never feel lost. You're encouraged to experiment with the game and figure things out as you go, but without the overwhelming complexity that can bog a lot of games down. As an experience, DRG is perfectly comfortable with getting out of its own way and allowing the players to make their own stories with the tools the game provides. So when we talk about the design of Deep Rock Galactic, there's certainly a lot of comparisons that can be made. DRG is a game filled with inspiration and traits from other titles that would be instantly recognizable, and it blends together multiple genres to create a unique experience. As I stated at the outset, we can really boil down the many components of Deep Rock into simply calling it a cooperative first-person shooter. Most of the game is built around working with a group of other players against the environment and enemies that are thrown at you, and thanks to a constant stream of updates, the game is always devising new and terrifying ways to kill your team of dwarves. Each session of Deep Rock begins with the players waking up in their respective cabin aboard the DRG orbital station, which presents its own strange playground of interactivity I'll circle back to. From here, the team is able to pick up from a variety of different mission types scattered around different and incredibly diverse biomes on Hoxus 4. No matter where you go on the planet, you're confronted with a strange and alien environment that makes you say, "What the heck is this?" every time you round a corner. A mission might have the dwarves working to build a large oil refinery in an irradiated cave, or perhaps you're escorting a large mobile drill through a dusty cavern filled with vines and tumbleweeds. Or you're simply diving through some deep and winding caves on foot, looking for specific resources to send back to the company. Each mission type has its specific objectives and is usually supplemented by secondary objectives that can be anything from gathering fossils to collecting strange growths hanging from the ceilings of the cavern. I do, however, want to strip away all of the specifics of what the game asks you to do and frame it through the lens of Dr. James Paul Gee. Dr. G's simplest definition of a game is a series of problems that the player must solve in order to reach some sort of win state. Deep Rock Galactic is, in its purest form, all about the problems of working a dangerous mining job. The different missions represent the different permutations of these problems, but they typically always start in the same way. You are dropped into a cave by your employer and told to do the job you were sent there to do, or you aren't coming back. Solving these problems in the individual missions and winning just means you get to go back to the orbital station and drink with your buds. There isn't any grand scheme of play here, you're just a dwarf with a less than stellar job that wants to get back in one piece to have a drink. It certainly doesn't do anything to combat the stereotypes associated with fantasy dwarves, but if it isn't broke, why fix it? From a visual standpoint, DRG is a perfect example of the less is more approach. Textures and models are made using a low polygon style, and the Ghost Ship team uses different color and lighting techniques to really make each biome feel completely distinct. Each mission is procedurally generated and can take a simple toolkit for each biome and turn it into winding tunnels that twist and turn, large open spaces filled with bioluminescent flora, or something in between. This isn't something I can do justice with words. The game truly needs to be experienced to see just how beautiful it can be, and the addition of different particle effects from your weapons and enemies make it quite the spectacle. Even after dozens of hours with the game and being incredibly familiar with the different terrain generation or the types of set decoration that make up each biome, I still catch myself stopping to take the game world in those brief moments that a bug isn't trying to tear my dwarf limb from limb. The game still surprises me with environments that are equal parts creepy and beautiful, and quirky terrain that forces my team to get creative with our navigation. Now, since we've established what the game is and the sort of mechanics that define a player's goals in the game, it's important to talk about how the player might actually play the game. When you turn on DRG, how do you interact with the world? What sort of tools does it give the player to solve the problems that it throws at them? In a very obvious way, that question isn't all that difficult to answer. The game, being a sci-fi simulation of a couple of men or dwarves at work, hands players a variety of heavy machinery with which to interact with the world and encourages them to go to town. A pickaxe will help players break apart the terrain to reach new areas or harvest different resources, whereas the player is given a diverse arsenal with which to deal death to the locals of Hox's Fort. What really helps to define the potential for a player's interaction and choice with the game is the class system. Each player selects one of 4 classes that will define their role in the group. The first of the classes, the Scout, is equipped with a grappling hook that lets them zip from place to place in the caverns, quickly accessing areas that would prove difficult for other members of the team. They are also given a flare gun that helps to illuminate areas for longer and with brighter lights than the flares the dwarves are normally equipped with. The gunner excels at handling large waves of the glyphed enemies with their placeable shield and large Gatling gun, and are also able to build zip lines to carry their team over perilous gaps. The engineer can construct sentry turrets to help his team defend against encroaching swarms, and has a range tool that attaches platforms to surfaces, giving the team access to resources that are typically just out of reach. Finally, the Driller, my personal class of choice, is equipped with its titular namesake, a pair of handheld drills that easily cut through the environment to make digging from one tunnel to the next much quicker than just using pickaxes. They are also equipped with large explosive charges that can be used for anything from quickly clearing away terrain, leading glyphid hordes into a trap, or accidentally blowing up your entire team. These class kits help to define a role that a player has in group play, and each has their strengths and weaknesses to the point that my friend Trandon, switching from engineer to gunner, made us approach every situation differently than we would have normally. Each class is also given incredibly diverse primary and secondary weapons that help to define their role in combat. I, as the Driller, am usually equipped with a large flamethrower that excels at handling large groups of foes, whereas the Scout starts off with a precise automatic rifle that is perfect for hitting weak spots at a distance. Progress in the game can also then help to unlock different options for these weapons that help to further fine-tune a playstyle. The very same flamethrower I use as a Driller can be customized to sacrifice ammo capacity for longer range, or damage for stickier flames that last longer. Although it's entirely possible for 2 players to play the same class, the choices they make will dramatically alter how those characters engage with the missions. Using these tools, the players are able to tackle the challenges the game throws at them in a variety of different ways, and the choices they make when prepping their characters can spell the difference between success and failure in some of the higher difficulties. To quote Salen and Zimmerman, game designers do not directly design play. They only design the structures and context in which play takes place, indirectly shaping the actions of the players. This is what Salen and Zimmerman refer to as a space of possibility. Deep Rock Galactic excels at creating these spaces of possibility because it provides players with a basic amount of information about a specific mission, like the objective, what biome it may be in, and the cave complexity, and expects players to use that information and their understanding of the mechanics to quite simply figure it out. Will I as the driller have more success if I bring my cryo cannon into this mission instead of the flamethrower? Will we be better suited with an engineer instead of a gunner? Each of these little choices are going to affect how we approach a mission, and these missions act as self-contained spaces of possibility within the greater context of the game. Even if the core gameplay in one mission is similar to the next, the choices the game makes when it generates missions and maps combined with the choices the player makes in character and builds always leads to something fresh. The game is also excellent in responding to the player's actions in ways that don't feel forced. Certain environmental effects will respond dynamically to player proximity. Periods of lull in the action might be interrupted by a large swarm of enemies, just as the team discovers a room filled with gold or mission-specific resources. And the mission control character provides sit-reps to the dwarves and updates them on the status of their mission. DRG also allows the players to scale the difficulty on missions for higher rewards, or face unique challenges in the way of mission modifiers. These can range from low gravity in the mission to causing every bug to explode upon death. The game, however, keeps the foundation consistent across all the mission types, ensuring that the relationship between the player and the game that fosters interactivity remains solid. Players will never be surprised by some change of rule or have the rug pulled out from under them. They can always expect aliens to have some sort of weak point or armor they can break apart. Resources will grow along walls or ceilings or otherwise have some sort of sign that helps to locate them. Ammo drops can only be ordered after 80 pieces of nitro are deposited in the resource receptacle, and parts of a cave are separated by highly identifiable brown dirt, marking where the group should go next. The game provides these rules and win conditions, and the players use the tools they have available to them within these spaces to complete their objectives. As I had mentioned prior, one interesting space of possibility that exists outside the mission structure is the Deep Rock Galactic orbital station that effectively takes the place of what might exist simply as a menu in other games. Once the players return from a mission, they are able to freely move around the space that houses everything from character loadout stations, to achievement trackers, to the mission select. Rather than throwing the player back into a lobby that would give them static menu options, they are instead provided with diegetic space to explore, cementing the gameplay as part of the game world. Changing your gear loadout isn't just a simple button press in a menu, it is reflected as the character approaching the equipment desk and actually switching these options out. What is great about the orbital station is it really helps to space out the action. Rather than endlessly running mission after mission, the players are encouraged to take a breather and just hang out in a shared space. It is also filled with little details to discover and interactable spaces that exist for no other reason than to encourage you to let loose like a couple of overworked dwarves might be inclined to do. Barrels and other objects can be kicked around while the mission control character berates the dwarves for wasting company time and money. There's a bar run by a robotic bartender with a variety of different brews that exist purely as a fun distraction. You can also explore a memorial hall that holds statues and artwork that fills out as you complete more challenges in the game. DRG wouldn't be any less of an experience if my friends and I weren't able to get blackout drunk on the dance floor, but the presence of these features helps to define the game as the playground that it is. Like I said previously, this game isn't solely about mining and fighting bugs, it's about having thrilling adventures with your friends. And thrilling adventures just aren't the same without the cold ones after the fact. We have just as much fun listening to the ridiculous voice lines as our characters drink as we do fighting off a swarm of glyph in a cavern. Now, you may be saying, okay, that's all well and good, but what about the game's story? What sort of narrative do we follow through the game as we endlessly extract resources from beneath the surface of Hoxus 4 and fend off the alien threat? Well, the game never goes so far as to present the player with the idea that they are progressing through a series of events that might make up what Scott Rogers defines as the narrative. Sure, there are a series of events that result from the gameplay. Start a mission, do the mission, come back and fool around in the orbital station, repeat. But these events don't follow any sort of passage of time and is better classified as part of the gameplay loop as opposed to anything that might represent a plot. While the game may be lacking any sort of traditional narrative structure, that isn't to say that there aren't any hints of story happening in the background. Unlike the orbital station, the events of the game don't exist within a vacuum. This is, however, the kind of story that a player doesn't have to engage with to enjoy their time with the game, and it exists regardless of whether or not the player pays it any attention. Although the player is given plenty of agency in choosing how their character looks and plays, there isn't ever an opportunity for them to contribute to or make choices within the story. To frame the story and its elements through the lens that Sebastian Domsch provides us, the story is presented through exclusively passive methods. It is only through the designed environment of the orbital station, the small voice lines between the player characters, and the lines from the mission control dwarf that we are given the small amount of context for the story at play here. The game does nothing to tell the player anything directly, opting to show them instead. The story is, unsurprisingly, centered around the mining company Deep Rock Galactic, and the 4 dwarves who are hired to extract the resources from the dangerous planet Hoxus 4. The dwarves are quite literally doing a job when the player chooses missions to embark on. It is how these missions and the relationship between the dwarves and their employer is framed that we can start to piece together the story of DRG. Deep Rock management, while not exactly hostile to their employees, very clearly doesn't care for the overall well-being of the dwarves. This is made abundantly clear in the way the missions are structured. After starting a mission and stepping into the caverns, the drop pod that delivered the dwarves is recalled and lifted back out of the tunnels, effectively trapping the dwarves. Their only hope of escape is to do the job they were sent there to do, regardless of the danger they may now face in doing so. When the dwarves do complete a specific job and summon a new pod that would allow them to escape, they are locked out until the mining hardware has been secured. Even when the pod opens, it's on a strict countdown until it lifts off and strands anyone that may not have made it back in time. Some missions exist to salvage the equipment from lost expeditions of other dwarves who were killed in the process, and the company is much more concerned with recovering company property than the remains of their employees. One can assume that Dwarven society doesn't have strong labor movement that organizes to protect workers' rights. OSHA is, notably, nowhere to be found. This same level of indifference and push for profit can also be seen in the way Deep Rock management views the native species of Hoxus 4. The Glyphid species is treated like an obstacle in the way of profit instead of some enemy force like we see in other games that have an emphasis on combat. The approach the company takes to fighting against the Glyphid, then, is less like fighting against the Covenant in Halo, and more like violently clearing trees to build factories. The difference at play here is, I think, the most crucial part of the small story of DRG. Deep Rock, the company, represents the potential for exploitation of both people and the environment that these organizations are capable of. Through a quirky, gritty sci-fi setting in a game about a bunch of space dwarves fighting bugs and mining gold, we can find a story in the background that speaks to the risks of imperialism and unfettered capitalism. It isn't at the forefront of the game's presentation, but the context provides to the gameplay makes for a richer experience for those who seek it out. When held against some of its peers, DRG can feel a little outdated, but this doesn't detract from the experience in the slightest. The game doesn't necessarily hold your hand when you jump into it, and it leaves the player to discover much of the nuance behind it. While the game explains what the player needs to do in each given mission, it's the way that they complete these objectives that is left to them to figure out. It is in this constant experimentation and discovery that the players are also taught how their choices and preparation might better lead to success in the mission. The game's clever synergy of the character classes, combined with the build variety within each class, makes for gameplay that will punish a team at higher difficulties if they don't come prepared, but reward clever team play. Each player is also constantly rewarded with a sense of progression that keeps them wanting to come back for more. Whether this takes the form of skill trees, pickaxe customizations, additional weapon unlocks, weapon skins, character cosmetics, etc., the player doesn't go more than a few missions without unlocking something new. While there may not be a narrative that grants any level of control to the players, the game hands the dwarves to the players and encourages them to go all out in making their own unique avatars. One crucial aspect of the game's customization and progression exists in its general lack of monetization, again making the game feel outdated in the best way possible. There are no FOMO-inducing battle passes, no loot crates or virtual currencies used to buy special hats, no paid DLC, only a few packs of themed customization content that allows fans of the game to support the indie developers. The simplicity of the mechanics, combined with the progression, leads to an experience that is easy to get addicted to. As the player grows more familiar with what the game asks of them, they take on more challenges, discover more strange secrets hidden beneath the surface, and turn a series of procedurally generated maps and missions into unique experiences with their friends. Speaking from my own experience, I discovered this game purely through chance thanks to Xbox's Game Pass service, and I was able to convince 2 of my friends to give it a shot, and within the first few runs we were hooked. After spending most of our recent gaming time in competitive multiplayer shooters like Apex Legends or Call of Duty, playing something purely focused on cooperation that doesn't result in a sharp spike in blood pressure was a welcome departure. Although I certainly commend them when they do, games don't need to provide vast branching narratives or deep-cutting social commentary to have an impact on its players. Sometimes an experience can be something as simple as giving some friends a playground to explore, some bugs to kill, and some gold to mine. Rock and Stone.